Um, Thank you so much. First question, do I need a mic?
Yeah.
I do need that mic, but do I need that mic? I don't think I do. I'm not sure it even works. I don't need it, do I? Everyone can hear me okay. Okay. What can I say? Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mike, Anne, Neil, Jan, Sharon, everyone. I shouldn't name names because I always forget somebody. But thank you all so much. And I know how difficult this is. I know how difficult this is. I mean, even the venue change shows us the predicament that we're in. And it's not, I must warn you, before we set out on this journey, it's not going to get easier. In fact, as we succeed, and we will, it's probably going to get harder. Because we're in a position now where telling uncomfortable truths puts you on the far right, it puts you on the outside, it puts you as in the mark of an enemy. You have the mark of an enemy on you by the British state itself. And as we go forward, and it's been absolutely overwhelming. Remember, we're only a few weeks old. For Britain is only a few weeks old. And I am absolutely overwhelmed by the response that we're getting. There was a poll on, I've watched 2 polls on Twitter. Now, I know this isn't indicative of much, but it is interesting. There have been 2 polls on Twitter in the last couple of weeks, a few thousand responders. And the first one I saw was, if there was a general election tomorrow, who would you vote for? And this party came second, beaten only by the Conservatives. A few days after that, there was another one with an even higher number of responders, and guess who came first? We beat even the Conservatives. We've a little way to go till then. Hi. We have an enormous, enormous task, and I say this every time I speak now, but only to be truthful. To be truthful, we have an enormous task ahead of us. And I know, and I see that some people are somewhat impatient with us. Some people want us to form a government tomorrow. I'd love to, but it isn't going to happen tomorrow. But it isn't going to take 20 years either. Someone said to me recently, it took UKIP 20 years to have council seats. It is not going to be like that, because the time is right. The time is now. Everything is about timing, and the time is now for this movement to begin. And I honestly, genuinely believe that half the country is with us. I really, really do. They might not know it yet, but they are. Half the country at least will agree with us once our clear, pro-Britain, common sense message gets out there. Half the public will agree with us. I have absolutely no doubt at all. So how are we going to get it out there? Well, just to give you an update on the party, we have branches now all over England, in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. In one day only, we had branches set up in all 4 countries of the UK. Interestingly, it's interesting to me at least, our Northern Irish branch is being set up by an ex-Muslim who was an imam for most of his life, and then sort of saw a light and became an outspoken advocate against Islam and mass immigration into Europe. He is now setting up a branch in Northern Ireland. It's huge, it's overwhelming, it's phenomenal, and we've only just begun. I was reading on the train on the way up here today, I'm sure many of you have read it, The Strange Death of Europe by Douglas Murray. If you haven't read it, do. It's taken me a while to get around to reading it. And whilst I know the facts that he states within it, Douglas Murray is a great communicator, and how he phrases it and how he draws our attention to things is quite remarkable. We have seen in the last 40, 50 years a complete transformation of what we once knew. We are not allowed by the established authorities to talk about it. And this has been going on for 40 or 50 years. In the last 10 or 20 years, it has accelerated. We are losing what we knew. It's as simple as that. We are losing the Europe that we knew. We are losing the Britain that we knew. And we will get this. We will get venue changes. When I first wanted to when I wanted to launch my campaign for UKIP leadership, which seems like 5 minutes ago, I wanted to launch it in Rotherham. And the police interfered and my venue cancelled. You might have seen recently as well in Manchester, Tommy Robinson wanted to do a book launch. And he had a venue in place. He had sold thousands of tickets. And the police interfered to pressure the venue to cancel this event. In the end, because he put it on Twitter that the venue owners had cancelled out of intimidation by police, he was offered about 8 or 9 venues across Manchester. There is still dissent out there. In the end, he chose to have it in the open air right in the centre of the city of Manchester, which wasn't their plan, because he was initially going to be out on the outskirts. In the end, he ended up right in the middle, and a lot more people came because they tried to prevent him from having it. But as we go forward as a party, I fully expect complete lockdown. How it feels to me is the walls are closing in, and the walls are closing in more every day. And you see it all the time. And when we have, let me just give you an example. It was something I said to my other half yesterday. There was a woman in Sweden recently, and she was raped by a Syrian migrant in her flat. Now, the evidence was all there. Her body was black and blue. There was DNA, there was semen, there was all the rest of it. And the police told her there wasn't enough evidence for a prosecution, and she killed herself. Now, we have seen this happened up in Sunderland with Justice for Chelsea. Again, a massive load of evidence, but no prosecutions brought. So they are closing in. They are closing in, and we are being told that black is white. We have all this evidence, and we're told there's no evidence. We have all these migrant rapes, and we're told there's no migrant rapes. We had Cologne. What happened in Cologne? And the next day, we were told it has nothing to do with migrants, even though migrants had committed it. We are essentially living in Orwell's 1984, where we are seeing something with our own eyes and we're told it's not happening. And if we identify it and we dare to speak it, then we are shunned. We have people who are threatened with loss of their livelihood. A friend of mine, Annie the Greek, who some of you who follow me on Twitter may know, has lost her job. She lost her job in the NHS because she refused to apologise for her political opinions. Now we're in a situation. Now take this in, take this in. I remember 20 years ago, it wasn't like this. It wasn't like this. 10 years ago, it wasn't like this. But take it in. We are now at risk of losing our jobs if we say the wrong thing. We are at risk of having our venues closed if we say the wrong thing. We're at risk of going to prison, quite frankly, if we say the wrong thing. That's the situation we're in. It is deathly serious. It really is. And no amount of calling me a far-right fascist is going to change the reality. That is what they're trying to do, but it's not going to change it. It's not going to change anything. And it's not going to change the fact that if we don't wake up now, if we don't fight back now, what will it be like in 20 years' time? As Douglas Murray noted in his book, if 20 years ago you'd have told someone that Europe was going to be the way it is now, they'd have thought you were insane. But it is. And as he also said, even the worst of the doomsayers of the past, people who predicted terrible things were going to happen with mass immigration into Europe, they understated their case. They understated their case. We have millions of people coming to Europe in a in a very short time and rapidly. In 2015 alone, just to Germany alone, 1.5 million arrived. Now, we saw what happened in Germany. There's no denying it any longer. There's no denying this any longer. We are losing our countries. We are losing our countries. And we have to fight back. We have to. Because what choice is there? What choice is there? We're at a juncture. We're at a juncture. This is what I say about timing. And so the last 20 years, some people were trying to speak up. Some people were trying to break through. But they couldn't, because the power of the lie was so great. The lie is now losing its power, because the people are seeing, and they know what they're seeing with their own eyes, and they're starting to say so. So the time for us is now. It is now. But it must be understood. And I want to say this to the people watching on YouTube as well as the people in this room. It must be understood that we can't solve this overnight. We're in this for the long haul, or not at all. We must have patience. We must support. We must support. I mean, For Britain is a tiny little movement now. And already, I'm sorry to say, already people are complaining that we're not already standing for elections and we're not already transforming things. You're in this for the long haul. We're in this for the long haul. The police will be against us. The government will be against us. And I expect trickery and games. Everything from the police to the Electoral Commission, I expect it. I expect them to close us off because the walls are closing in. And the more we speak, the more petty they become. You might have seen this week that the verification on Twitter, so you know what the verification on Twitter is being removed from far-right people. I'm surprised I still have mine, actually. When I go on Twitter now, for the last couple of days, I'm looking for the blue tick for it, and it's still there. But this is the pettiness of it. And the Swedish woman that I described who killed herself, it was the same day that I posted that they were starting to take away people's blue tick. This is the pettiness of it. We have mass rape. We have terror attacks. We have we have halal, we have FGM, we have Sharia. And what we're getting, Twitter, is the pettiness of removing your verification tweet. This is what we're living in. This is what we're living in. We can only fight back. And from little acorns do grow great trees. They really do. I have no doubt whatsoever. If you stick with this, and I'm asking you to stick with it, I'm asking you personally to stick with us and to exercise patience and understand that we are building a massive movement against all the odds, but we will and can do it. We will and can do it. And here's the thing, we have no choice. We have no choice. We either fight and put up with all the abuse we're going to get. If you think you got abuse as UKIP, wait till you're going around for Britain. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. We have to meet in secret. We have to meet in secret. That's where we are. But it's all we've got. It's all we've got. We have a choice. We can either do this and do it within all the restrictions that are placed on us, and every time they punch us, we just stay standing. Either that, or we simply lie down and let the ancient continent of Europe be consumed by an alien, and I have no shame or make no apology for saying this, by an alien and hostile culture which hates everything we stand for and which will destroy us if we let it. And the time to fight back is getting very, very short. There isn't a great deal of time. And the reason there isn't a great deal of time is because they have the children's minds. They are focusing on the children's minds. And this is why education is so important. If you want to take over a country, take over its primary schools. It is as simple as that, and that is exactly what is happening. And it should come as no surprise that the dominating far left, which is what rules this country, and I include the Conservatives in that. The Conservatives are bowing to the far left, so they may as well be the far left themselves. They're bowing to it. The National Union of Teachers, a far left organisation, is deciding what British children are taught. British children are being taught to be ashamed of themselves, as are European children all over the continent. We are standing by and watching while parts of London, parts of Paris, parts of Berlin become areas where the British, French and Germans can't even go. One thing in Douglas Murray's book, which I read this morning, was the Saint-Denis area of Paris, which is full of iconic tributes to French history. And it's now a basically French-free zone. It's an incredible thing, because part of the people who are honoured in this part of France were the ones who drove back Islamic invasions from France. And now it is so Islamic that French people dare not step there. So we're being defeated, not by war, but by immigration, by opening our borders to hostile cultures and then apologising to them for not being compliant enough to their hatred for us. That is the reality. That is what we're doing. We have become so self-hating, so we insult and degrade ourselves at every opportunity. Now, I want us to turn it around. I want us to start remembering the greatness of Britain and the greatness of Europe. Europe shaped the world. For good or ill, there are, of course, things to criticise. Of course, no one's past is perfect. And of course, no society is perfect. But it shaped the world. We have had revolutions. We have had revolutionaries who shaped this continent for us and who shaped Britain for us. I think we have a duty to make sure that the British people who come after us have the same freedoms that we have, or that we had until Islam came along. Today, we have a duty. We have a duty to fight this. We have a duty to pass on the best we can possibly pass on, because others did it for us. But they did it in trenches, and they did it in the Blitz. We don't have to do that. We have to face off against the media and the corrupt and lying politicians and the venue changers, basically. All we are asking is for people to stand up and tell the truth. That's it. I don't want anyone in the mud of Flanders and France fighting through the trenches. All we are asking is for people to support us, to tell the truth when and where you can. If you can't join us, I understand, but at least vote for us and tell your friends about us. This is how it's going to work. We are not in the trenches. We are in a completely different battle. It's a battle of ideas. It's a battle of principles. It's a battle of information. It's all about us getting our information out there. So when you leave here today, go out and tell a few people about us. Send a few YouTube speeches around. This is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to defeat it. And when you compare it to what others have done before us, it's really not that great a battle. We will be called names. We will be called names. You will be insulted. And the police and the state will clamp down on us. But all we have to do is keep telling the truth. That is our greatest weapon. It is the only weapon that will always, always win. No matter how many lies they tell, the truth is stubborn, and it will stand there and it will keep showing its face, and no amount of flim-flam will destroy it or disguise it. So the truth is that we in Europe and in Britain have in our midst millions of people who hate us, millions of people who want to destroy our societies. And it's not all their fault. Part of it is our fault. Part of it is our denigration of ourselves. As Douglas Murray again said in his book, the very concept of multiculturalism is an anti-Western, anti-British concept. Of course it is. Of course it is. In order to up inferior cultures, we must downgrade our own culture. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing. And we're allowing it to happen. And all I'm saying is stop. Stop degrading ourselves. Stop this. We have to stop it. We have to stop it. I want us to change this they're all guilty of colonialism thing to they gave the world democracy. They gave the world the rule of law. They gave the world trial by jury. They gave the world some of the greatest political and just principles the world has ever known, came out of Europe. A lot of them out of Britain. Let's start talking about that. Let's start teaching that. I also, and I say this now at every meeting I do, I also want us to start telling British children about sport. I really do. It matters. It matters. Sport and music. Look at the musicians that have come out of this country. Incredible, worldwide, world phenomenons have come out of this country. Sports, football, tennis, rugby, cricket, probably a lot, golf, probably more, came out of this country, this tiny little island. The light bulb, the flushing toilet, penicillin, out of this tiny little island. Start talking about this for a change. Start remembering who we are and what we are for and what our history is and the absolute positive influences still felt all over the world out of this tiny country and out of this tiny continent. I want us to stand tall again. Stop insulting ourselves. We have everything to be proud of and no more to be sorry for than anyone else. There is no demographic group or culture or race on this planet with a clean sheet. Not one. Not one. So why is it only we who are expected to perpetually apologise for our past? I'm tired of it. I am tired of it, and so are most of the British people. I am convinced of that. We are tired of being insulted and degraded on our own soil. We are tired of it. And I want us to stand up and say it. I'm not going to speak for much longer. I am going to take questions, which I always prefer, because it gets us into a conversation. But I am genuinely, genuinely so grateful for everyone's support. I'm overwhelmed by it. But more than that, I am so optimistic. I am so optimistic. I can't believe this is happening, actually. 5 minutes ago, I was trying to be UKIP leader. And now look where we are. Now look where we are. Not only has the, how am I going to say this that doesn't get me into too much trouble? Give me a second. Not only has the cult of Farage, there I said it, fallen somewhat, but it's completely changed. It's completely changed. And people have said to me since the end of the leadership election, why didn't you stay in UKIP and fight from the inside? This is absurd. First of all, I have principles, so I don't hang around with people who call me a Nazi. And secondly, the damage done by this is unforgivable. Unforgivable. This is real. This is real. This immigration, this completely incompatible culture, this is now widespread across Europe. It's real. And it is incompatible. And women are being raped. And people are being blown up. And children are being killed in Manchester and London and everywhere else. This is real. And it's not being done by Hindus or Sikhs or Zoroastrians or anyone else. It's being done by Muslims in the name of their religion. That is the truth, Nigel Farage. And no matter how many names you call me, it will still be the truth. Now, I walked away from I walked away from UKIP for the same reason I walked away from the Labour Party, which is definitely a long time ago. For the same reason. People say, oh, you're a party. No. It's following principle. I will not belong to anything that will not tell the truth about the most profoundly important issues that face both the British people and the European people as a whole. I will not be a part of that. I will walk away, and you know what? In our democracy, if there's no party representing your views, you start one yourself. And that is what we are doing, and we are going to succeed. We are. Like I say, half the country is behind us. Half the country is behind us. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And if we can get out there, and we will, and from January we will be holding public meetings once a week all over this country. We will leaflet people, we will tell them we are here, we will tell them we exist, we will tell them that the media is lying to them, which they already know, but we will tell them the media is lying. We are not far right, we are not even right, we're not left, we're none of these things. We're not conservatives, we are simply pro-Britain and pro-common sense. Now here's what I want to do with my life. You have got my commitment, my lifelong commitment. There is nothing else I'm going to do now with the rest of my life but this. I've sacrificed a lot for it, as other people have. But here's why. Here is why. I love this country. I really do. I really do. It brings, when I, the Union, just seeing the flag makes me feel emotional. I love it with all my heart. It has given me everything I value. And I believe I have a duty to fight for it, to preserve it. This is a magnificent country. It is, of course, I know everyone says it, it's that they have the greatest country in the world. But in this case, it's actually true. This is, to my mind, the greatest country in the world. And its children prove that. Look what Britain has produced. The United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. These are all based on the freedoms and the culture of this great country. It must be preserved. It must be preserved. We must respect it. We must respect those who died in World War I and World War II and other wars to fight for this country. They didn't die for nothing. They didn't die so we can hand it away to people from far corners of the world who have no regard or respect, in fact, who hate the people who died for us. No, I absolutely refuse to back down. I want this great country to survive. I want the great continent of Europe to survive. And if we don't fight, it won't. And that is where we are. We have no choice. Do I want to take on this enormous battle? Do you want to take on this enormous battle? No, I really don't. I wish we didn't have to. But there is no choice. We either do this now. When I say we don't even have to go into the trenches, all we have to do is stand our ground when the state attacks us, when the police attack us, when the media attacks us. All we have to do is stand our ground and keep telling the truth. That's the task that we're being asked to do. That's it. It's tough, it's difficult, it's personally difficult. I don't like being called a far-right fascist in the national media. I really don't. I don't like it when some ITV crew sends a woman to follow me around for months, recording me all the time. It was horrific. When I realised that that's what had happened, I can't actually explain the feelings I had. It was just, I was embarrassed that I'd been duped in that way. And B, it was just shows you how the depths they will go to, to try to destroy us, But we have both right and truth on our side. Nothing we are doing is immoral in any way, shape or form. Quite the opposite. In fact, quite the opposite. We are defending what is just, what is right, what is true, and what is decent. And I urge everyone watching this and everyone in this room to stand firm, to stand tall. It won't be easy, but the rewards are great and the price is too much to think about. It is too much to think about. Either fight now or we have a future that none of us, you will pass on to your grandchildren something you would never want to live in yourselves. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to invite questions. But thank you all so very much for coming along. I'm going to say, okay, any questions? Okay, go on.
You mentioned that Nigel Farage and Henry Bolton called you Nazis.
Yes, they did.
And racist, and by implication, of course.
Yeah.
The timing, I'm not too sure on. Was this before the leadership election, or was it immediately?
It was the day. It was the day. The day of the result, he was on LBC saying that we were BNP types and that he hopes she leaves, she being me, leaves the party today. That was on LBC the day of the result. So he kept it quiet until he could. But it didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me at all. In fact, I expected it.
What I'm getting at actually is, did it influence the election?
No. Bolton was putting about that Farage was his political referee. And I suspect it was, but I don't know where all the support for Bolton came from. I've pretty much stopped thinking about it now. But from what I could see, more and more people were beginning to support me, so I don't know where this came from. But like I say, maybe I was just blind to the fact that the party, as many negative messages it was sending out about me, it must have been sending out just as many positive ones about him, which weren't in The Guardian. One of the worst part of the entire campaign to me was reading in The Guardian of all places, that UKIP had told them, we're only letting her stand so she can lose. I mean, this is shocking. This is absolutely shocking. It's a terrible way to treat a member of the party, and I'm a legitimate member of the party. Oh, I was a legitimate. Actually, I've never left the party. Just I've never actually left it. Perhaps I still am a member. I don't think I need to formally leave. Perhaps they've got the hint. What's that? I'm not. We're quiet. I'm not. I don't think I've joined yet. Actually, have I? Should I even be here? I'm an infiltrator. Got a camera in my bag there. But no, it was the day he finally came out and got to say what he wanted to say.
Yeah, these true colours were revealed.
I agree.
One of the reasons I left UKIP, that was the defining moment. I was thinking about it, and then that's not right.
Yeah. No,
Out.
You know, I think UKIP is a couple of things. They got tired of being bullied by the press. I think they were weakened by it. Years of punches by the press weakened them. And it mustn't. It mustn't weaken you. You have to know that you're going to take this stuff from the press and keep going. I think they were elated to have me in the leadership election because I was taking the punches now. And they could get to frame themselves as the moderates and me as the extremists. And it worked. I mean, even The Guardian was right again. The Guardian was writing about how, I was the extremist now as opposed to the moderates of UKIP. They must have enjoyed this. And, people, they wanted to keep their celebrity status intact. And I say that about one particular person who I think is desperate to keep his celebrity status intact and isn't going to, even if he knows it's true, going to say that it's true. And this is the unforgivable part to me. Not only did he join in the witch hunt of those of us who tell the truth, when it suited them, they joined in the witch hunt, but they're also now lying. I know that they know what I'm saying is true. I know it. So they're knowingly lying to the British people. Now, they're playing a game. They're playing a game, and they're playing a very dangerous game. And it's a game that which the British people are going to lose. The losers will be this country. And this is why, to me, it's unconscionable to remain a member of that party. It was unconscionable. There was no way on earth I would have done it, out of pure principle. And I would say this as well to people who are still in UKIP and wondering whether or not to come over. Three things I would say. One, and I've said this already, the time is now. The time is now. The public is awake. They just need someone to vote for. The time is now. The public is awake. And secondly, and I've forgotten what secondly was. What was I actually saying?
Why people should leave UKIP and come to us?
Two. People are biding their time, waiting to see what will happen for Britain.
Yeah.
If you don't come over and make it happen, then it won't happen. We need people to come. There's no point in sitting around waiting and seeing what will eventually emerge. And to be honest with you, I'm a bit disturbed by this, and this brings me on to point 3. We're not in this for glamour. If you're going into politics for a career and for glamour, then this is not the place to be. If you can't come over from UKIP on principle alone, then why come over at all? If you're waiting to be reassured that you're going to have a career, a paying career, then we are going to succeed. But what I'm saying is at the beginning, you must come on commitment alone. You must come on principle alone. Because everyone in this room is here on principle. Everyone in this room has sacrificed something to be here. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is exactly what we need. Someone who is here not because it's convenient, someone who's here not because they've waited to see how the land lies. Come over and make it happen. That's the point. Make it happen. It won't happen without you. It won't happen without decent people standing up on a point of principle and making it happen. That's the whole point. So if you're still in UKIP and you're dithering, I have to say, the UKIP dream is over. I really do believe that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm now an opponent of you, but it's over. And it was over the minute, and I should be grateful for this actually, but it was over the minute it started being politically correct. It was over. The people wanted someone to vote for who wasn't shouting the same nonsense that the Tories, the Libs, and the increasingly lunatic far-left Labour Party were saying. And so now, certainly when it comes to certain issues, the issue of Islam being the main one, we now don't have a Lib Lab Con party, we have a Lib Lab Con Green UKIP party, because they are all exactly the same. UKIP has taken the same line on Islam that the Green Party has taken. This is the moment it died. This is the moment it died. When they put media, and I remember the leadership election, and I remember actually going to the NEC meeting when Paul Nuttall decided I wasn't going to be a parliamentary candidate in 2017. I could see it. I could see that they were terrified of the media. Absolutely terrified. And there was something of, and I'm going to say it regardless of the camera being on me, there was something of a laziness about Paul Nuttall at that meeting. Not only did he look at the floor most of the time, but it was like, oh, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered dealing with all these questions from the media. Inspirational, isn't it? Inspirational. That's what I call a fighter for your country. I can't be bothered. Come on, for crying out loud. People, what really gets me is for crying out loud. Like I said earlier, men fought in trenches for this country. People have endured the Blitz for this country. Put up with a few lies from the media. For God's sake, wake up, wake up. We've got to do this. We've got to do this. And the point, and another enormous point of all, none of this is going to be reversible. This transformation of our country and this transformation of Europe as a whole is not easily reversible. This transformation is pretty much, if we let it happen, permanent. And the reason it's going to be permanent is because they take away your freedom to object. And when your freedom to object is gone, then what have you got left? What have you got left? Dissidence, even violence, is all people have left. And I know I'm going to be slated for that, but it's the truth. So if we can't do this democratically, what options have people got left? We are inviting warfare. We're inviting horrors. And we still just about have our democratic ability to fight back. Just about. And I probably even expect problems from the Electoral Commission. I probably even expect all sorts. I don't even know what to expect, but I know that the walls are closing in. I know that the walls are closing in. And we have to start pushing them back. We have to start pushing them back. And now. The time is now. Hi.
What do you say to those people that think it is too late to fight back?
Well, I think I try not to go there in my own head. I try not to go there. I understand why people think it's too late. But the only conclusion, and again, this is myself having a conversation with myself, is what else is there? What else is there? And part of me thinks, imagine how much worse it would be if we weren't here. You know, there's only this small little pushback, but imagine how much worse it could be if it wasn't for us. We're very important, actually. The dissidents, and that's what we are, we're dissidents, are very important, as they always are. In any society threatened with tyranny, which is what we are, the dissidents are the most important people in that society, and that's what we are. I fear what they're saying. I don't want to believe what they're saying. And I don't actually believe it. I still think we are still the vast majority. Across Europe, Europeans are still the vast majority. And decent non-Europeans who are on our side, we still have a lot to fight with. But we're running out of time. And to the people who say it's too late, we'll say, well, okay, well, what should we do then? What should we do? Just lie back and say, okay, we're beaten. Have it. Here's Britain. Take it.
Do you think the answer is get to change the opinions?
All we can do is fight. All we can do is fight.
You said maybe half of the UK.
I really do believe that.
Well, there are so many. I mean, there's so many that publicly will not, on almost perfectly banned from Facebook, but on there, they will never ever agree with anything you say or whatever. But when you see them in private, they do. But that's not really helping. So they have the same feelings, but they're not even prepared to come out in public and say. So many of them, just I know. Think the same, but there have been years and years of left-wing bullying has scared them into saying, yeah, you're right, and I think the same, and they're all just terrified.
This is where we come in. This is where we come in. If you have people at the front, if you have punches coming from all angles, and the people at the front keep walking and taking the punches and taking the punches, and they just keep walking, other people will follow, because the punches have already been taken. And they will get less of a punch, if that makes sense. Because someone at the front has to take it, and as I've said many times, and Anne said it, courage is contagious. It takes people to stand up and say it, and then other people will say, hold on, that guy thinks what I think, I'm going to say it as well. It is contagious. What it needs is leadership. What it needs are people to stand at the front and take the punches that are coming, so those punches are no longer effective when they get to the row behind and the row behind and the row behind. It happened with the EU. And UKIP did a wonderful thing with this. 20 odd years ago, it was unthinkable that Britain would get out of the EU. But UKIP persevered and persevered and persevered and took all the punches, so that those punches were no longer powerful when they got back to the rows behind. That's exactly what we have to do now. And it will work in exactly the same way. If we take the punches, those punches will be given, and they will no longer be powerful anymore. And then other people will join. They will follow. And it's already happening. It's already happening. There are more and more people who are awake to this than they were 10 years ago, than they were 20 years ago. Than they were 5 years ago. I've been doing this for 10, 12 years now. And I've seen dramatic change in public opinion in that time, because the truth can't be defeated. You can hide it, you can stamp on it, you can push it behind the curtain, but it'll always come back out again. And people are realising it. What it takes is a leader. What it takes is a group of people to lead and to, like I say, take the punches so that they no longer have any effect. That's what's going to happen. It will happen. It will happen. People are growing more confident by the day. And the greater we get and the more we speak, the more confident they'll become. It's unstoppable. It's unstoppable.
You would think, all the things you said earlier are true, but you would think that the fear of the Britain that will be there for their kids will be greater than the fear of being called a racist by a lefty, but at the minute it doesn't seem to be that.
The problem is they don't necessarily believe that the Britain that we'll be handing down to the grandchildren is real. They think it's scaremongering. But the more happens in reality, the more terror attacks there are, the more the press is talking about horrible practices like FGM and all the rest of it, and the more we have halal and free speech restrictions, the more people are becoming aware of it. They are becoming more aware of it. And the reason they didn't, like you say, you would think that being called a racist would be less important than, but they didn't believe they were handing that on to their grandchildren. But now they're waking up to the fact that they are.
In my life, there was about 100,000 Muslims in the UK when I was born, and 6 mosques, and in my lifetime they've more than doubled every 10 years.
Yep.
It's been reported in things like The Guardian, BBC, that they're doubling every 10 years.
Yep.
I calculate that means about 34 years' time, they're a majority.
Which is why we have to do it now. Which is why we have to do it now. Well, there are a couple of things. One, we have to start removing people who have no right to be here. Now, what's very important is political message. It's very important that you send a political message. At the moment, coming out of this country is a message of weakness. What's coming out of Europe is a message of weakness. And when that message reverberates around the world, the whole world thinks, oh, Europe is soft, let's go there, they'll take us. And they'll give us money, and they'll give us houses, and all the rest of it. First thing we have to do is change what is going around the world about Europe and about Britain. Change the atmosphere, if you like. We have to start throwing out people who have no right to be here. We have to start getting rid of these 3,000 known jihadis. either putting them in prison or throwing them out of the country. We have to start throwing out people who practice child marriage and FGM. Get rid of them. They have to go. We don't need this poison in our country. If we did that, can you imagine? Can you imagine how much the atmosphere would change? Can you imagine how many jihadis across the world would suddenly think, oh, I don't know about Britain anymore. We can't. They wouldn't come anymore if we sent out that message by actually doing it. So we have to start enforcing the law, both the law, the criminal law, when it comes to rape gangs and child mutilation and all the other horrors that it's bringing, enforcing the law without any pussyfooting around. Either throw these people in jail or throw them out of Britain. End of. First major message we send around the world. And another thing is stop the immigration. We have to stop the immigration because none of this will matter unless the immigration stops. Now, I have, on the ITV documentary again, I was criticised for saying in a car, we must stop all Muslim immigration now. Now, that's a personal opinion. It's not necessarily going to be for Britain's policy. It will be if you want it to be, but it's my personal opinion. And when we have a debate on this in the party, that will be what I will argue.
Why does anybody think they have a right to come?
Well, quite. There is no right. There is no right to come. And this is another trick that the elite plays on us, as if it's inevitable, that the whole world must somehow move to Europe. Why? Why? Why does the whole world have to move to Europe at all?
We were naive when we let them come here in the first place, and they were quiet and did.
Well, there was no plan. There was no plan in place.
We now know that Islam is not compatible with our way of life. It absolutely abhors our way of life. It's not. You know, it hates free speech. It hates democracy. It completely hates freedom.
I think we will get rid of the ugliest parts of Islam if we just enforce our laws. That's rule number one. We don't need to apologise for this. We're not racist or bigots or fascists for enforcing the law. And if the lefty comes at us with racist, as they always do, with how in God's name can it be racist to want everyone to be subject to the same law? Let's use some logic. Sharia
Islam, you're making Islam illegal.
No. It's not about making Sharia law illegal. It's about making the horrors of it illegal. We don't even have to make them illegal. They're already illegal. We just need to prosecute. This is the point. We don't need to do anything really outrageous to deal with this. We just need to enforce the law. And that's to deal with it within this country. We also need to enforce migration laws. And we need to change migration laws. Now, UKIP for years was going on about a Australia-style point system. Australia is a mess. Why on earth would we want an Australia-style point system? We want, and I will say it in plain English, we want a discriminatory immigration system. We want, people will shout at you, that's discriminatory, it's discriminatory. Yes, it is. Damn right it is. Because we have enough common sense to discriminate. We discriminate between good and evil, and we don't want evil coming into our country. So we will look at the world and we will see places like Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan and Yemen and UAE and all these other horrible, horrible tyrannies and think to ourselves, do we really want masses of people coming from those societies into our society? Where is the common sense here? Where is the common sense? And when we talk about the Muslim rape gangs, what an insult to Asian people to call them that, an absolute disgrace. When we look, let's look at what we have now. For 40, 50 years, we have had gangs of overwhelmingly Pakistani men all over this country, gang raping white women because they're white. Now, are we going to continue to have mass immigration from Pakistan, given what we know about this? That's the question. And if someone comes back and says, yeah, but you can't punish all Pakistanis for the crimes of some Pakistanis, my answer is, we have a choice to make. We have a choice to make. We can either somehow, for some reason, which apparently some people think is inevitable, that somehow Pakistan has to move to England. It doesn't. That's the first point number one. There's no reason at all that Pakistan should be moving to England in the first place. And secondly, you have, with mass immigration from Pakistan, you run the obvious risk, the risk based on experience of 40 years of gang rape, that if you continue, more and more girls will be raped. So you have a choice. Who do you care about more? Pakistanis' ability to move to England, or English girls' right not to be raped? This is our choice. I choose English girls. That's it. That's it. And look, to be honest with you, people say to me, well, what about nice Pakistanis? Well, I'm sorry, what about nice English girls? Let's stop putting Pakistanis above English people for a change. For a change.
The beneficiaries are going to be young Muslim girls too. If we just stop FGM.
Of course. Of course. Of course. And you know what? A few people are going to have to suffer, but this is where we are. This is how life is. And one thing the left never likes is reality. The reality of how life is. So here's the thing. If we were to throw, and I want us to, Somali families out of Britain for practicing FGM, I want us to do that. Now someone will say to me, oh, how heartless you are. What about the poor little girl who's been sent back to Somalia? My answer has got to be, yes, that one family will likely suffer, but it's the butterfly effect. The lesson that will be learned by that one family is will save so many more girls. That's the point. You have to do what is for the greater good. And I can promise you, nothing will stop FGM like throwing them out of this country, because they do not want to go back to Somalia, I can assure you. I promise you, a few deported Somali families back to Somalia will drop the FGM rates in this country like nothing else will. Nothing else will work. Nothing else will work. They will lose the privilege of living in Britain, all the benefits, the nice housing, the whole lot will be gone. This is the only threat that will work. And yes, some people will suffer, but I'm sorry, far more people will be saved. And that's how we have to focus.
FGM is illegal.
It is illegal, but you wouldn't know it. It is illegal, but you wouldn't know it. Because the police are multicultural. The police don't care about the law anymore. The law? The law is racist. This is the kind of world we're living in. There's no obligation on the police either to deal with this stuff. Now, what I want us to do as a party is campaign for real accountability in the public sector. Not just in the police, but across the public sector. These people are using taxpayers' money. People who get up every morning, go out and graft, and then pay a large chunk of it to the state. Their money is being given to the police, to the NHS, to the Crown Prosecution Service, to local government. Their money, our money, is being paid to them, and they are blowing it. They're throwing it away on nonsense. And not only are they not doing their own jobs, but just there was a documentary, which I must mention now because it's in my head, recently on BBC Two, Who's Spending Britain's Billions? If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's about the public sector having massive six-figure contracts with private companies to consult them on how to do their job. So we are paying, we the taxpayer, is paying for the public sector in the first place, and then paying for private companies to come in and tell the public sector how to do their job. We're paying twice and getting nothing because they're still substandard and still ridiculous, frankly. All they are there for, the CPS, the NHS, the education system, the local government, they seem to be there for one purpose only, and that is to control our opinions. To control our opinions. The NHS spends so much money on diversity. I'm sure it spends more money on diversity than it does on certain medical conditions. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. And having worked in the NHS for years myself and gone back, I've gone in and out of the NHS over the years, and I can see it changing and becoming more and more politically correct as it goes along. Health tourism, for example. It costs the NHS £2 billion a year. And for anyone who doesn't know, health tourism is essentially people coming from other countries just to use the NHS and then go home. And in my time in the NHS, I saw this happening, people coming from far corners of the world, And I worked in a HIV clinic, and we had people who would come, for example, from the United States to pick up 6 months' worth of medication, because when your sort of HIV is controlled, you can antiretrovirals will keep you going. Your 6-month checkups are fine. But there were people who would come from the United States to Britain, have a checkup, take 6 months' worth of medication, and then go back to the United States because the flight from the US was cheaper than paying for their medication in the US. Now the point is, I'm not void of compassion for people, but it's not fair. It's not fair or sustainable that the British taxpayer should have to pay for the whole world. We have all these people coming, but they're not bringing any money with them. We have to pay for it. We have to pay for it. And if you dare to object, you'll be called every fascist under the sun. Enough. Enough. Britain cannot, physically and financially, cannot support and sustain the whole world. It's not fair. And it's time we said so. It's time we said so. The whole public sector is a joke. It's a joke. It's taking our money and fritting it down the drain, and the British, the payer, is getting sod all from it. People have had enough. People have had enough.
It's only the leadership, because within the NHS and everywhere else, there's plenty of us.
Of course.
Just keeping the heads down.
Of course. Look, 1 minute. The issue is, and I will finish on this, but the issue is that we're too afraid. We're too afraid. The staff, and I see this in the police all the time, it's not the ordinary Bobby on the beat who is agreeing with this stuff. The Bobby on the beat doesn't want to lose their job and their mortgage and the roof over their children's head, so they toe the line, as you would. Because when you have kids and you have to raise them, you have to maintain your livelihood. That's why they threaten your livelihood. What must change is at the top. The PC, cultural Marxist, common purpose nonsense that dominates our public sector has to go.
We will make America great again.